care about the politics. We have to care about democracy. Do you? Like, here's the thing. Architecture, like, sorry, hate me. I don't care. You can still participate in politics. You can still participate in policy. Why does architecture have to do everything? Architecture, to me, is always a luxury.
It's easy to look at those projects that are curated there and to look at all those people's work and start to see some thematics.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Honestly, it means nothing. Look at the images.
To what degree does a project like this set a student up for that?
Welcome back to Mixed Signals, everybody. A few technical challenges, but we're up and running. I do have a conceptual thought that I wonder what this podcast is like if we shoot at 10 p.m. instead of 10 a.m. Because I think one of our members might be a completely different person.
I'm fucking pissed. Let's go.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm fucking angry. I'm fucking so angry.
By the way,
I slept for like 4 hours.
I feel like we'll all be different people.
we should do a late night episode.
Fiery, angry late
We've done
night.
late night episodes, bro.
Oh, that's true. And we're just about to fall asleep. That's the problem.
We could call it night render mode.
Night render mode.
Nice.
Oh, night render. Yeah, like when you guys may not know this, but back in the day when you were rendering something in studio, you would set up your renderings because you would leave them all night because it took all night to render one image.
Yeah.
And then you'd come in the morning and realize, I didn't set the lights.
Yeah.
Fuck.
What are you talking about? I did that for like the first 2 years of my
That's
life.
true. I say it's like some old thing. It's like this has changed in the
It will
last
be,
few
though.
years.
I slept on the computer lab floor waiting for a render to finish,
Attaboy.
and it didn't finish.
You don't have anything else to do?
No.
This is my chance to welcome Matt Lopez back to the podcast. Welcome, Matt. You are probably by far one of our most requested guests to return.
Requested
So-
by who?
You know, a couple internet trolls. But those two internet trolls get a lot of my brain power. So
And
I'm going to...
In our little URP
It's true.
research gathering, your episodes were called out.
It's true.
Well,
We like having that on.
Yeah.
well, I'm flattered.
Yeah.
It's
Cool,
a lot
Matt.
of fun
Okay,
being
we
on
don't.
the podcast.
You can talk.
You want to
later.
stop?
What are we talking
stop
about?
glazing, Matt?
Oh man,
Yeah,
Waleed
I don't
is
give a shit. Let's go.
fired up.
Yeah,
today.
he's fired up. Just you just have to work around it. It's all good. So part of the reason we asked Matt to be on this podcast is because we started talking about a podcast that we've all been listening to called the Attention Podcast. I will say this before we get into it. If you're a student listening to this and you try to tune into the Attention Podcast, it's a little dry. I think it's designed maybe for our type of people. But I will say I'm very grateful for it because I think it's actually done a really good job of contextualizing a moment. And it'd be really fun for us to unpack it today.
The Attention Podcast is really good, but I think it does need more context for like undergraduate students.
Can I
Wait.
jump in on this?
Oh, boy.
Wait,
Here we go.
I'm
Let's do
still
it.
finishing
Here we
a
go.
thought.
Get that
Fiery
button
Waleed.
Spicy.
Spicy Waleed. But I think it would be interesting if the URPs or, if you guys jump in and say, what are you talking
totally.
about? Because I think if you have listened to or would listen to Attention, you might get lost in like, what is the...
Do we have a sound effect for that? Instead of like a hand raise.
Okay, Waleed, you can go off.
All right. So, but that's the thing
She was
about
very
attention.
polite.
Like, I think as we start to talk about attention, you might realize that its like goal is not actually achieved. Sorry, I'm kind of pausing because I'm hearing someone's breath. Is that your breath?
That's me. I just took a deep sigh.
I could
really
not
hard.
concentrate on that at all.
Because
Jesus.
I'm worried
out
about.
that-
Honestly, I'm worried about you this morning.
I mean, to be fair, I think they do present themselves as like a podcast journal.
Yeah.
They do.
So, anyway.
Yeah, but I guess what's nice about it is it is pretty in depth, and it is like, it's like reading a book. I mean, I think one of the issues why maybe students don't get into theory that much is because there's so many references. You can't read a book by like, I don't know, Bob Somel or something, Jeffrey Kipnis without knowing a huge amount of references. So it's kind of like that. It's a bit more advanced. My point was, it's kind of nice because it just doesn't let any random person say, hey, I'm an expert at this subject. You kind of have to know a little bit. Not to say I want to kind of gatekeep people out. It's just there's levels of it, just like there's levels of difficulty when it comes to books. But with that said, I think the argument behind attention, a lot of the kind of generational shifts deals with trying to be more open and not as exclusive. And it's funny that this is the format. And obviously these people who got interviewed have nothing to do with the format, but it's just kind of funny. Is like they're talking about like the democracy and the openness and the plurality. And then it's like you got the most exclusive content.
Talk about irony. They talk about irony a lot. And one of the biggest ironies is the gatekeeping that you guys are opposed to is pretty much exactly what the structure of this podcast is.
Yes, it's a through line. Yeah. An elephant in the room everywhere.
And so that's why I started off with this kind of like rant. Not to say I have anything against the Attention podcast.
No, we've been consuming it. By the way, for whoever made it as a person, I hope you hear this.
Joseph Bedford, I believe.
Joseph Bedford
Tim
I forgot the name of the editor. Yeah, Tim Fox. We should look this up. This is bad.
I definitely had it.
All to say, like
Tim Cox. I'm sorry.
I've listened to hours of this podcast, and I've re-listened to at least three of the episodes 2 times. So I will say, you guys, thank you for making it. Maybe some of the criticism that we're levying is we would like to open that door to a wider audience that would be probably really interested in that conversation, but find it impenetrable. So. Just a little bit of context. This podcast starts out by saying that they're trying to capture the narrative around a specific generation of architects, and honestly, you could I hope this isn't taken the wrong way. You could kind of see this as a little bit of a lost generation because it's sandwiched between the economic crisis of 2008 and then basically COVID. This is their era when they kind of, as practitioners, as educators, establish their territory. So not a criticism. It's more to say that the landscape that they're operating is really weird. And the way that maybe you could figure out the participants in that group, the easiest way would be to go to maybe the possible mediums list, which I'll put up for the video. But there's some names here that come up a lot on the podcast. Andrew Holder, let's see, Jimenez Lai. There's a bunch here, actually.
Christy Ballier.
Yep. Michael Meredith is mentioned a few times for his basically for commenting on this group actually a lot.
And specifically, this is academia, American academia, a certain group of colleagues that went to, I think, certain schools. Mm-hmm. Our peers, like you said, kind of revolves around the possible meetings, but not exclusive to it. Mm-hmm. But this podcast revolves around a generation of academics in America. Mm-hmm. Like that's the very specific content around it. And the reason possibly is because historically there's been advancements in, let's say, American architecture has revolved around academia. So this is coming back, doing kind of like an archaeology of the past maybe 10 years and trying to understand, hey, what has this group that defines maybe a lot of academic leadership positions in terms of not like deans, but the kind of people below tenure track.
They're becoming.
Like Michael Young, Andrew Holder, Nate Hume's not as much talked about here, but all of those people that are now becoming leaders in academia.
So it's just like, it's taking a pause and looking at the things that influence them and how they think, which I think is great. Like you need that. I mean, as a student, I think that's also beneficial. As a practitioner, I think that's beneficial to understand the kind of counterpart to architecture. There's always academia that gets published a lot, or used to, and actually maybe they discuss about like why things don't get published in the same way on the academic side as they used to. But anyway, that's kind of the preface of what it is. Good, bad, it doesn't really matter. There's some like key qualitative descriptors that are used over and over again, like plurality, democracy. What are some other ones that they used?
I mean, we can get into the terms.
Audience.
Yeah, we talk a lot about audience. Like we can get into the terms that describe the aesthetic as well. Yep. But pluralism seems to be one of the biggest as far as maybe an ideological standpoint.
I think. Oh, no, go ahead.
I just want to make 2 other notes. Also, we are specifically talking about one season of the pod. I think it's worth saying that Architecture Exchange is more broad, and this is, I believe, their 8th season. When you had put tabs on it a while ago, I think we were looking at earlier seasons. So I think this particular season 8 is really interesting.
And these recordings were, if I remember,
2001 or
2020
and
2021, or between 2020 and 2022, I think.
Yep.
Right, so.
They started in 2013.
The podcast did, or
it seems as so.
Yeah, and I think maybe the best way to kind of get into this before it becomes extremely dry is let's look at some of the projects, talk about maybe some of the things that we see in common, things that were brought up in some of the episodes, like aesthetics and ideology. I think we can mention that Moss is a very influential, let's say, like language and architectural idea generator. I don't know how you kind of describe it. It's a reference for a lot of them. It seems as sometimes as positive, sometimes as negative, I think, from the way I understood it. Where sometimes, Moss is a good guy, sometimes Moss is the bad guy, depending on kind of the topic of the discussion, which I thought was kind of funny.
Like they really didn't like the indifference
article
from Michael Meredith,
trying
to put them into a camp.
And in the kind of, and again, we're going to be talking about references that people probably don't know, so probably look it up. But like Mark Foster Gage versus Michael Meredith conversation kind of came up, and everyone had kind of like a bad taste in their mouth. It's like that's not important in the times of 2020 pandemic and the George Floyd kind of protests. Like there was things happening that seemed not to be super important. At the same time, where domestically there were important issues that had nothing to do with the discipline of architecture, and I think they were responding to it. And so there was these conversations where sometimes Moss becomes the bad guy in their opinion because they define the kind of disciplinary ideas that sometimes they think isn't productive from the way I understood the podcast discussion. But
can we look at Moss's work to put that into context? Because I think if you don't kind of pay attention to this genealogy, you'll notice that Moss is pioneering a lot of the representation tools that a lot of these offices end up using, which is maybe first and foremost is like really favoring the model and using the model as a stand-in instead of digital renderings. Also maybe creating an aesthetic or a language that seems a little bit low-tech, more accessible. You'll also notice a lot of interest in the plan oblique, in frontality, in the ideas of using disciplinary drawings to unpack a project instead of renderings. So people, I think, in the podcast, a lot of the people in this generation reference their work as an aesthetic influence.
And I think the low tech and the labor practices, like thinking of fair labor practices, what's doable in our time period, being kind of aware of a financial crisis that can happen because they've kind of experienced one. Can you build the digital is one of the things that came up, because digital was one of the episodes, and saying a lot of people shifted because a lot of these people were trained underneath post-critical theory, but also the theories of the digital from Greg Lynn and them. And we can get into that later, but kind of just responding to the fact that things kind of look like domestic architecture a lot here because they started working in the domestic program type, which is fine, it's great, but there's things that are doable and not doable. And what Moss provides is he championed, let's say, like the A-frame or sloped roof.
Yeah.
I think there was a discussion that in the podcast where they mentioned Michael Meredith discussing with Jesse Reiser's distaste
the low
towards
res house
where the distaste towards the sloped roofs, and he's like, at a certain point you have to deal with this typology, like the roofs are going to happen at a certain kind of budget, like that just has to happen. But it also speaks to not is it only buildable, like why is a slope roof there? It's there to kind of maybe function to deal with snow and rain, but also it's a cultural and visual indicator of something, right? Like it indicates domesticity, indicates maybe Western language. It's something beyond just labor, and you can't remove that from the aesthetics of these people's projects.
Could I dig into something here too? Because I feel like this group is described as almost like very humble, anti-heroic, but I would say their heroism, or what they're trying to bridge, and it gets brought up, is this gap between academia and practice, and trying to bridge through like bringing buildable materiality, forms, etc., into teaching. But at the same, and we could talk about audience too. They want to bring architecture to a wider audience, but I find it so conflicted because it's also highly discursive, and they acknowledge that too. Like the moves they're making are, we spoke about it very briefly last week, is like comedians telling jokes for other comedians. I feel like a lot of the moves in the design work, in the academic teaching, speaks to bridging this gap between academia and practice, but then it's highly, highly discursive.
But wouldn't you, I mean, that's a little bit unfair, because if we say, well, this group doesn't really have a project, they've kind of abandoned formalism, they're going back to these vernacular forms, they're abandoning the project, and then we say, well, they've staked a claim in these minor details and the nuance of how these projects are built, and then we're going to criticize them for that. I think one thing I just want to say is, like, I appreciate the work that they've done to get to this point. I feel like maybe they're layering the way that you can read the project, right? So if I'm just a person that saw the project, I might understand it as, oh, that's a familiar form, but there's something strange about it. That might be where my reading stops. But as a disciplinarian, I'm going to be like, how are they doing this? What is with this angle? So I don't know. I'm not going to criticize that point, and I understand why you're saying that, because I feel like that was where I went to initially. But now my feeling is, I think they're making a new area of territory in both something that is recognizable but something that's innovative. And how do you do that other than the way that we're talking about it?
Can I just step in here and say that I think a lot of what we hear in the Attention podcast has a lot to do with how it was edited to make it seem like it's not. It's usually like 10 seconds of someone talking. So a lot of it seems out of context. And, I know some of these people. I definitely know all of these people's works for the most part. And I think that it comes off, differently than how they actually view the world. Because it comes off from when you listen to again, this is not an attack at the Attention podcast. I just think that sometimes it comes off as, they don't have a project, as you guys might say, or like this could be anything, although it's not, because they actually sometimes say, we have a very specific project.
I think they have a project.
And I think it's in response to Michael Meredith. I think at one point they said that this generation is kind of doesn't have a definition. They don't have a stake or something. I forget how they said it, but it's just like clearly they do. Like when you look at the work, and that's what I want to say. I just want to look at the work and say, hey, this kind of all looks very not dissimilar, but it fits under an umbrella. It's very identifiable, and you can't tell me. Like I think one of the issues is sometimes when the interviewees are speaking, it kind of seems like, like we're open for everything. You're not. You're very, very specific. Like you only care about a certain set of things, and I think some people agree that got interviewed, and some people disagree. And what I don't like is just like you. Again, that's why I have an issue with the way it's sometimes edited, where it seems like they actually don't have a stake, where they do.
So you guys feel that it's very lukewarm in terms of position taking and owning up
That's
to the
how
fact.
they present it.
Right.
I disagree with that completely. I think a lot of these people do have a very, very specific aesthetic position, very specific idea on the discipline and all. And like,
if you visually read the work, you get the project better than if you listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to articulate earlier, is that if you look at the Miro board, Maggie, and we just are able to look at a few of those offices, like what I've done here is curate maybe 6 of the people that were interviewed a lot. Moss being one of them. Team is right below them. To the right's Jennifer Bonner. There's Clark Tenhouse below. I mean, there's a few, but just to say that, like, if you just look through all of these and try to digest them, I think you can connect the dots for yourself a little bit. But maybe in the podcast, one thing they keep going back to is saying how these people were maybe unwilling to build a generalized view of how they operate as a group. And I think that's not surprising. You're not going to interview me and have me explain Matt's position on something. So yeah, some of it is the structure of the podcast that's a little strange to me. I also find it difficult to track who's talking sometimes. It's like, okay, they're going to introduce 3 different people, but my nuked brain can't remember the 3 names they said by the time.
I mean, like I said, it's set up for a very specific audience, and it's not like it's pretty gatekept in an extreme way. I mean, I just have this issue with the whole post critical position that they try to present. Is like, you're still post critical. Like, you are one of the most like academic coded people on earth. Like I can't look. I love these people, but sometimes it's like, I don't know what the fuck you're saying. Just can we use normal words? Can I try to understand?
She was ready.
You can understand my tempo and pace change. That's how you can predict me, Maggie. You're a good student. You are a great student.
She learned.
She had studio with you for a whole semester.
Yeah.
She's like, he's about to cuss.
But anyway, it's like sometimes, and I want to hear Matt's point of view. I want to hear the student's point of view on trying to understand, maybe like for the students, like, what do you think about this work? How do you view it? And then for Matt, like, just because you're probably more aware when you listen to this, some of the references, but I think there's some excuses that they build in, and I hate those fucking excuses.
Yeah.
Because actually sometimes it's fucking offensive.
Can you give an example of
I'll give you an example of, like, we have to care about the politics, we have to care about democracy. Do you? Like, here's the thing. Architecture, like, sorry, hate me, I don't care. Architecture, it could be a hobby. Architecture could be something you do. You could still participate in politics. You could still participate in policy. Why does architecture have to do everything? Architecture, to me, is always a luxury.
I completely and totally agree with what you're saying.
And how they present it is like, no, this is our duty. Okay, do that shit. Go participate in your local community. Do something. Architecture doesn't have to do that. It doesn't have to be the answer for everything. And that's my biggest gripe of how it comes across. And I don't think this speaks for everyone that participates in this interview.
Certainly not.
But it comes across that you have to do architecture, and architecture has to do everything. And I think that's problematic. Like, sometimes, like, your clients, I mean, let's go back to Bob Stern. People want his architecture because I don't know, for them, I don't necessarily agree with some of his clients. They want to feel rich. They want to feel powerful. That's what architecture provides. Now, I also understand there's housing. There's all types of things that architecture can do, and you should do that. But to kind of make a highly, highly esoteric project around the idea of democracy and whatnot, come on. I understand they have well-intended kind of objectives here, but it also comes off kind of like weird.
I think some of that is the the editorializing of the podcast, because if you listen to, I was actually listening to the politics one again last night because I was worried I'd miss some stuff there.
The ideology, you mean?
No, I listened to politics again, then ideology. But I was listening to Andrew Holder's comment, and I think it was a really good one where he was defending what might be seen as their indifference. And he's basically suggesting, he's like, look, you can't ask us to be both author and critic and political commentator. We can't do all of those things. These things used to happen in different ways. He also said, look, I have political opinions. I have an agency in the way I think about my work. It doesn't mean I have to publish it in a manifesto. Right. That's not right for this moment. Well, I think he's right.
Being apolitical is a position. Yeah. And that was one of the points that one of the interviewees made.
But they also said it's not that I am apolitical, but being apolitical is a position.
Right.
But they didn't claim that they were.
But that, and to me, that feeds back into what you're saying, of which I agree. It's like architecture can't possibly be responsible for all of this. It plays a role. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a character in the larger scheme of things, but you kind of have to pick a lane. Mm-hmm. And there's, I guess, nobility in whatever lane that you choose. Yeah. But one of the ways that perhaps you could describe it is like, okay, one, you could go the easy project route where you're just concerned with kind of getting work built and out into the world. The other one is the difficult project where in some ways, like modernism was a difficult project in that it was trying to establish a larger meta-narrative, a way of being in the world in terms of politics, aesthetics, and how architecture was responding to the Industrial Revolution. That would be trying to encapsulate all that is the difficult project. And that's one of the things that Walid is trying to say is that on the one hand, the podcast reveals their agenda. I'm not saying with all of the authors, that they want their work to do all of it. And that is a very difficult thing to do. But the degree to which architecture can do that in the first place, I think is up for debate. And I would agree. It's like it just can't possibly be responsible for all of that.
Could we also, like Walid, you brought up the post-critical, could we unpack that lineage? Because I think that would help
just
clarify,
to kind of summarize, you mentioned two key words for the post-critical, which is like the easy and the difficult project. And the way that this is kind of like coming from Bob Sommer and Sarah Whiting and the Doppler effect article that they've written, which is, something that I think every student reads at most schools, I believe, including this school.
Should. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think you should unpack
that. I'm not going to unpack it. It's deep.
But I don't think it is read here. Have you guys read the Doppler?
I don't read, so
yeah. Even if they came across it, doesn't mean that they didn't see it. But just to kind of say, like, the difficult project is responding to the difficulty here is like the critical project, right? The Peter Eisenman's kind of the disciplinaries, the formalist projects of Michael Hayes and Peter Eisenman, and the post-critical, as we mentioned in the last episode, kind of deals with how can you broaden the audience? How do you? Bob Sommer, when he took over UIC, his idea was like, how do I teach green dots, and he called it Green Dots 101, which green dots refers to a OMA proposal for Downsview Park in Toronto, is a huge landscape architecture competition where a lot of big names, one of the last kind of big competitions out there. And that proposal, OMA won. And in Bob Sommer's perspective is like, this is amazing in a way, but like, how do you teach that? It's like, how do you teach the OMA? I don't even say it's like the method. It's just, how do you teach this? And like UIC became kind of that hotbed of regurgitating something along those lines. And the thing is, what's interesting is that a lot of these people that were interviewed taught at UIC or were adjacent, and there was like this Midwest Mafia like period of time where the Midwest Mafia schools like Michigan, Ohio State, you had Kentucky, you had UIC, and then you can include Rice in that because Sarah Whiting was the dean at the moment. And obviously Bob Sommer and Sarah Whiting are friends and kind of influenced this whole kind of school of thought. And then you had Jeffrey Kipnis at Ohio State that was kind of part of it. And the possible mediums came out of that Midwest Mafia. So really, if anything, it's like this is a conversation between two coasts and the Midwest that at certain points people got educated on the coast and then they went to the Midwest and they found kind of an opportunity, a stake to claim of influencing those schools. And that's what happened. And that's what this podcast is about. And obviously there's some people still on the edges, but a lot of it deals with not just these people that they're talking to, but their predecessors that taught them. And it seems like they're kind of responding to these people, but these people are also their bosses, which is kind of fun. It's like they still help you influence the way you think, and I think there's a healthy relationship. I'm not saying they're against them, and I know Paul Preisner, like he's mentioned in the podcast a few times. I think looking at Kind of Boring, which is a text I included, and so for MXD text, for those that are in the book club, that's a book to look into, Kind of Boring.
Yeah.
And I think it does a pretty good job of explaining maybe some of the ideas, some of maybe the humbling that comes with the work. There's a building that it doesn't look like the most fantastic project, where some of the other projects that you have posted, Caleb, they don't look like they're humble. They don't look like they're addressing the politics that maybe some people claim. I'm not saying that they're claiming it behind these projects, but sometimes they're like, this is a dumb, silly project, but it's like the most crafted project on earth. At least Paul Preisner's just like, it actually does seem like it's humble. It's doing something interesting in his own perspective, but it's not breaking the bank, and it responds to everything pretty well. And so there's degrees of like my criticism of when I think it's appropriate, when sometimes it just seems like you're still in the academic sphere.
There was a picture of Homer Simpson reading Kind of Boring now,
nice.
which I think is just great.
Hold on. This is perfect.
Should we do a fun wipe and then return to this topic?
Sorry. You need to do a lot of editing, Caleb.
That went way out of the post-critical.
But that's really helpful as context.
That was the post-critical.
Yeah.
I explained the post-critical like in academia.
Yeah, I think that's really important to connect the dots. And I one thing to just mention to the students that are listening or anybody that's maybe digging through this podcast is that, and I think Wally made a really good point about this, captures a really specific moment in time. And there's so many other things going on in the discipline. But maybe the reason to focus on this for a minute is just that this group does seem to be one of the most coherent. If you look at the landscape right now of like what's happening around architecture, it's just like
that I agree with. Yes.
The digital people kind of fell off, and there's people maybe doing different things in different ways that are interesting, but it's just like I don't really know how to encapsulate that into a new group. So I think one of the reasons to focus on this is just it's easy to look at those projects that I've curated there and to look at all those people's work and start to see some thematics emerge.
Yeah, so. and they do a really good job of kind of working together to strengthen that idea and that project. And I think there is a project. I just don't like that sometimes it gets presented through the podcast like there isn't one. And it doesn't matter. It's like, actually, you just need to do your research to understand this project better. And that's that. I think they do the best that they can to present it. That's
and they're also, think about the amount of information they're digesting for us in all those interviews. I mean, I can't imagine the hours of editing that went into this podcast.
Yeah, I'm not crapping on it. I just there is some criticism.
But yeah, sure.
Of how I view it.
Let's do a fun wipe. Do the I do want to look at these really quick. Can we just look at the top one there?
Yeah, I don't know how you select these fucking images, man. How you select these projects?
What are you talking about?
I actually did my research this time, and I'm just like, I looked into them. I'm just like, what? Why are we talking about these projects?
Because most of the time I pick projects that just happen to be what people are talking about right now. This project I've seen shared a lot.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Well, now that you're super bummed about it, let's go ahead and unpack it.
Waleed is in a mood.
Waleed is in a little bit of like grumpy down
today.
It's not grumpy. It's just how I feel. It's like I have no issues with this project. It's just like in a sea of so many things, why this?
I actually did want to talk about the project because I saw a lot of people share it, and I thought it was cool.
What's your issue? I don't understand your issue with it. You don't like the images? You don't like the building?
I don't know, man.
Let's unpack the project. Let's go back.
Yeah, go to the.
I don't have an issue with the building. I think it's fine. I just
I
don't understand.
I wanted to believe that. So
I think why it's famous and why it's going around might be the person who designed it. It might be some of the politics behind who commissioned this project. Like, it's not necessarily
similar.
And it's part of the
should we talk about what the project is?
Yeah, let's look at it. Yeah. Let's look at it.
Yeah, we're doing a really bad job explaining this.
Yeah, well, somebody keeps shitting on it. Go back.
That's my role in this fucking place.
I just like it because it's doing a lot of interesting things. Actually, on a related note to what we just talked about, if you want to talk about some themes that it's kind of maybe touching on, one thing is like from the outside, it's very not expressive. It's a big white box, but when you get close, if you look at the facade, it's got actually a really beautiful, is that ceramic or punched metal? I can't really tell what it is from the distance, but it's got this really beautiful patterning that's a screen system. And then when you get closer, you start to understand there's actually like some interesting geometric moves happening on the inside, which is, it's a very traditional chiral geometric pattern, similar to like Muqarnas, like a traditional Islamic architecture. But it's done at like a macro scale that that you can read as an inhabited volume. I just think it's a nice project, and I've seen it shared a lot.
It is a nice project.
It is saying it's drawing inspiration from Islamic and Persian, but why?
Well, it's an Islamic center. It's a community center and a mosque.
Bingo.
Yep.
That's why.
That's why.
What am I missing here?
But I don't know. I just wanted you guys' reaction. I think to my point of saying, like, I think this is a very contemporary project in that it's playing with familiar and recognizable things, but it's rebooting it in subtle ways. And one of the ways it's doing it is through this screen system, through the materiality. But I just think it's a nice project.
Can I get Nihar's opinion on this?
What do you want? You want to hear me say it's wacky or something?
No, I want your honest opinion.
Yeah, what do you think? Honestly,
I think this is
when you
not
just see
wacky.
I think
Nihar is really walking on eggshells
Nihar, I just
around
noticed
today.
that you typically have a very different perspective than how we view the architectural discipline or some projects. I just want to hear input.
It's riling up the
I think from like a formal standpoint, or from like a design standpoint, I really like it. My one thing that I always try to think about is more that, like, one is like the form of the building, like does it fit with the surroundings? I don't think buildings that are like too big in the area fit very well, but I think that then that also plays on the interior. Like this is a mosque. This is supposed to be a place of like religious.
Is it a mosque?
No, it's
not a mosque.
It's a community center.
Community center. My thing is, like, does the design intentions do, like, the rain screen is beautiful. Does that, like, properly, like, reflect what it's meant to be on the inside for whatever it is? And I don't think I necessarily.
I'm gonna hot take. I think it's super boring. I think it's like airporty.
Thank you. That's what I think.
What?
I don't like it.
Do we know who the architect is? Do you know who the architect
Nelson
is?
Rashid Masavi.
Rashid Masavi. Okay, do we know who this name is? Like, I'm just kind of like, okay, like, for being a person that went from, look, you could change your project, you do whatever. It just seems like in the large kind of list of projects that she's accomplished, why is this talked about? And compared to, again, it's not bad. It's just like, it just seems like kind of like, it's just a building. It's fine. It's good. I like the interior a lot. I think the atrium is cool. I think the exterior wall has got a lot of kind of sophistication to it. But I guess it comes to the point of like, am I expected to look at projects and just be wowed by something? Because like the first kind of significant project that was published a lot was the Yokohama terminal with Alejandro Zerapolo.
This is where our generation is different than where I don't think they would do hot takes. It'd just be like, oh yeah, nice, but we're a little more.
Well, my point is like there was a thesis behind this project. There was like an evolution of like responding to the discipline. This other project, it's a fine building. It's just like, I guess I kind of feel lost. Like, how am I supposed to respond to these things besides say it works here, it works there, it's kind of cool, fine. There's no tie to this. This goes back to maybe the attention podcast. I think, like, if there is no stake or disciplinary conversation, then all I can say is it kind of looks nice or it doesn't look nice. Or it's like, it's fine, Like, that's as far as I could take it because it's reduced down to its material, a spatial context, and that's it. It's like, I like to tell my students, hey, do you guys know this Jackson Pollock guy? Do you know the work that he does? He just, throws paint around. Any child can do it. But why is he famous? Why do people look at his work, value it so much? It's not because of the technicality of it. It's not even for the visuality of it. It's because of what it meant and the disciplinary kind of advancements of it. So I'm asking.
And expensive donors and lots of props.
Yeah, but why do they find it to be valuable? It's because a critic wrote a lot about it and talked about it and kind of put it in the headlines. My point is, what the hell are we supposed to...
You don't think there's any disciplinary conversation to be had here?
No.
Really?
What is it?
I agree.
I am finding it hard.
What is it?
Yeah, look, I'm saying it may not be immediately accessible, but I mean, just like looking at the building itself, I think it's like, again, what I'm trying to do is maybe point to certain things that it's probably reacting to and building off of, which is this predilection towards like a really simple, legible set of forms, and then how they get materialized. So look, whether or not I think this project is exceptional or not, I think it's trying to fit into like that contemporary conversation in the discipline.
I think it's a personal project, and there's nothing, like, I'm not even like attacking this work. I'm just kind of saying in general, we kind of live in this kind of environment when, like, what am I supposed to do besides say it's good or it's bad, I like it, I don't like it, it works here, it's productive. So I break it down into its qualities rather than its like larger stake. And I'm not saying we need to go back to larger stakes, but without that larger stake, what am I responding to? I can pretend to make a larger stake, but I don't think that actually even exists.
Can we get opinions from not just me this time, but we have some extra audience members. If anyone here has an opinion that like to voice,
but you need to
like I'm free. I have an opinion of mine, but if someone wants to jump in, I can
hold up. Yeah, you can get on that mic.
Go for it, Allie.
I think that
you need to get way closer.
You can pull your chair forward if you want.
I think that the geometry within the building is really interesting, but the pattern that's applied to a majority of it, I kind of don't really understand. I feel like there's a disconnect between this pattern element that seems to be added to give the facade interest, and it's also added to the interior geometry, and I feel like there's a disconnect between the simplicity of the exterior and then the geometry on the interior, because it does create really interesting moments, but then also like looking at it from the interior environment and then the exterior, I don't know if I'd consider them to be the same project apart from that pattern that's unifying.
Yeah, I want to say, I just want to voice my opinion real quick. I think disconnect voice properly. I don't think I did a proper job doing it before. I think the building is like aesthetically, it looks cool. I think its form, like you're saying, Caleb, I think it plays on very simple but like complex moments and things like that. But I think it is just that. It is a building that looks cool. I think it was a unique design, and in that way, I think it's a personal project.
Yeah.
I don't think what it was trying. I don't think the intention behind the project, the program, and the actual design are ones that like are cohesive. I think successive projects are ones that can have something complicated, but that ones kind of influence each other. I think this facade is great, but if it's or like there's moments where it's like they're cool, but like you're just getting unique moments of lighting. But I think that unique moment of lighting should have an intention on the program, and I don't see that to the building. And it feels
Can I suggest we back up a little bit? Because I feel like the way we're talking about this right now is superficial. So I'm going to go back to Waleed. And that's not a critique of anybody in particular. It's just the way that we're discussing it. What role do you think architecture plays in culture and society, Waleed?
It provides a lot of images. It's inspiration for maybe future projects. It's kind of a mood-orienting device.
So
for most people,
if I was to summarize that, would it be an instrument for building or creating culture?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you guys agree with that?
I think that's a really tough thing to claim. But if a building is super successful, it embeds itself in culture. I'm not sure you can say that it's creating culture. I think that's tough. But I think if you look at the Pantheon, for instance, a building that's like we're talking about like urban artifact, right? Like it's something that's lived through generations.
Maybe creating is. I think that's a fair critique.
It embeds itself in culture.
It participates in culture.
Right.
Is a better way to put it.
I don't think in our building practices, buildings like create culture, but I think there are other traditions. Like I'm a broken record, and Waleed knows about like the Issei Shrine, where like craft traditions are passed along as you build, like you are building culture and memory as you build the thing. Mm-hmm. And I think like for me, that's the best of architecture. Now, is this building doing that? Like handing down knowledge in any form? I don't know. I would arguably no.
I think one of the things you mentioned, Waleed, was that you described it as an image, mm-hmm. and image making. And one of the things that the podcast talked about, the Attention podcast, was there's two ways into a project. One is what you see and the image, the optics behind it. And the other one is the meaning behind it. The only way, or perhaps one of the only ways to talk about the meaning is to, talk about it. You can't necessarily see it unless you have prior knowledge or education. So in other words, to build the context to which Nihar is talking about, you need a description of it, like a verbal or written description of it.
It's also kind of unsurprising to me that it is a superficial conversation around this building, or like it's falling flat for me, because I think this is maybe what you're getting at, Matt. But I'm also thinking like, what is a cultural center in Houston? Or I mean, I think some level of specificity that they maybe were to is it's an Islamic culture, but like in America, what are we doing there? Even the images I'm seeing of this like overhead looking at a cafeteria, I'm thinking like, who is going there? And so it becomes unsurprising to me that it's these like vast empty spaces with one person, because I'm like, what happened? You know, what I don't know what the attraction is or who this is for, if that makes sense.
But do you need that to read a project? Like when I look at old
think
books,
to make a project, it helps.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you're looking at a book documenting a canonical project, the same questions are there. Like, who is this for and why? But the difference is you get to stand on this side of history and say, look at all these people that appreciated this, right? So whenever I'm reading these projects, like the who it's for, it's like that's such a weird place to focus because we just don't get access to that. And also the cultural question, give it 50 years to see if this project embeds itself in culture at all. Like we have no idea. And that's why it gets so weird to me when we talk about that in architecture, because I'm like, we don't control that. And even if you made the project, you have so little agency.
Wait, don't control what? What do you mean?
You don't get to control the cultural landscape that your building sits in. You get to react to what's there, and you get to put something in it. And maybe if you're lucky, people love it and they use it and it becomes part of it. But we have no control over that.
And I get that. But again, I think that's why I'm saying I don't really know. Like, I don't think there is like, yes, as the architect, okay, you're not controlling who the audience or inhabitants are, but like I don't see what the need is here. And that's
mean, we don't know, right? Like we didn't commission the building.
Right. It's
there's so many factors to this that we can't like honestly.
It's an important person. So that's like one of the reasons why I'm saying like, okay. Yeah.
I mean, so as to why these projects end up on the board, one thing that interests me, like, Waleed, you started by talking about as an image, which I always kind of look at it like that first because that's my only access to a lot of these projects. Unless I went there and I saw it and I got to react to it and describe to you guys like, wow, this project does something really interesting that's unique. Most of the time, I'm reacting to the image that I consume, which, like, when I'm looking at my feed, if a project like this starts showing up a lot, I'm mainly curious, like, okay, people that are seeing this want to, one, photograph it and put it on their social accounts, and two, when people see it on social accounts, they're sharing it. So to me, I'm like, I'm kind of with you, like, maybe, I don't really know how I feel about the project other than to react to a couple of formal things that I like, but more I'm like, okay, so why does this project break through but others don't? And to your earlier question, like, why are people sharing this but they're not sharing whatever other projects are happening that are next door to this one or whatever.
Yeah. I'm speaking of the politics behind image sharing and the significance that you try to do. Like, you're not writing an article about Jackson Pollock is what I'm saying. You're just sharing images. And that's I'm not saying you have to go back to that model. I'm just saying there is a difference.
Yeah.
Let's identify it. Let's not pretend that this is someone writing an article about a critical piece of Jackson Pollock's work. It's not. So, yeah, I mean, you guys all kind of like, when you described kind of the projects, so actually when everyone described the projects, you just describe qualities. And I know we should move on, but I think when we move on to the student work, you'll see we just describe it quite differently. I mean, partially is we only get pictures. We don't get plans. For such a geometrical building, but we don't get plans. We don't understand how it functions. So how can I even operate in responding to it? Because that's not the purpose of that article. The purpose of the article is to tell you the kind of, I forget how the actual title of the Aga Khan person is, but like it's a very significant person in that very specific Islamic community that commissioned that project, and a very significant architect and educator led the project design. So it's just a title signification, and it is a decent project. It's just my critique was like, well, how am I supposed to respond to this? What am I supposed to do besides just respond to an image? So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Again, we want to head back to our emerging desk crit series, which Waleed pointed out at one point, this isn't a desk crit because one, the student's not here, and two, we're talking about two projects, not one. So it's problematic. Maybe we need to rename it. But let's take a look at we've kind of curated two projects one for podcast. You again from two. Oh, yeah, all right.
You're making a weird YouTube reference. Do you know?
I don't think that's a YouTube reference.
Well, right. Old school.
Yes,
maybe.
Not YouTube. What am I saying?
I was going to say that'd be really concerning.
What was said? I missed it.
I said we should call the segment Two Projects, One Podcast.
I think that's pretty funny. I think that's pretty good. As always, we pick an institution and we select two projects that their school has featured on their Instagram account from this institution. This week we're looking at USC. I've actually curated two projects from the same critic. And to be honest, there's not a lot of information about these projects, but part of the reason I selected it is that I think they have some relationship to the topics that we were trying to unpack in the podcast. The critic is Ryan Tyler Martinez, and there's actually I'll give him a follow on Instagram.
Guy.
Yeah, absolutely, and beautiful work, by the way, on their own Instagram account as well. Two projects here, one from Jeanette de Los Santos and Negan Sabui. I hope I'm saying their names even close to correct. But the thing that's really cool about these two is just they clearly share a similar sort of thesis, but they're executed in slightly different ways.
They're in the same studio?
No, I believe they're both
called the Model for Later. Is that just exhibition?
I think this is from an exhibition that the school did.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the Thesis Expo. So it's 2 thesis projects, and the critic was Ryan Tyler Martinez.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, and to be honest, guys, there's not a lot more that we're going to get. There's basically a couple images of each of these models, but that's okay. I actually think we should just read the provocation of the exhibition down there because I think it will give some context. Christiana, do you want to be our reader?
Oh, yeah.
You got a great reading voice. Let's do it.
She's
Awesome.
also leading the
You also are
club.
the only person in this club that knows how to read.
One would hope. Okay, the aim was to create a body of work that operated in parallel with traditional architectural contingencies such as site, program, precedent, codes, politics, and social engagement, while also focusing on individual authorship, form, representation, and theory.
Okay, that's broad.
All right,
That's
so
It's everything.
That's
It's
everything.
It's
Yeah.
doing all the things.
and I know we're about to all we're going to do is just lay out a list of qualities, and that's all we're going to do because that's as far as you can take these projects for the most part.
So
that's
why
my
don't you
critique
start
on
us
both.
off, Waleed?
Now, are we going to read the other project?
No, those are the same. That's the
Oh.
exhibition that these were both
Oh,
featured
okay.
in.
So it's not a specific
So it's like a thesis.
description.
Yeah, it's a thesis exhibition at USC that these were both curated into.
Wait,
Yeah,
so
I
that
don't
description
know what-
defines
It's for the exhibition.
I don't know what that means.
Honestly, it
at
means
all.
nothing. Look at the images.
What's the title of the series?
It's called where's
A model for later.
A model for later.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's an
models, one
exhibition on
podcast.
models. That's why we're only seeing the model
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, I just making a general sweep is like these projects tend to kind of be oriented towards listing a bunch of qualities that look nice, work well. There's probably an overarching cultural critique, and there's not saying good or bad. It's just I was just making kind of a snarky comment. It's like we're just about to list a bunch of
Yeah, we
qualities.
know. We know.
But let's do that in contrast because I think the two projects, while they might have some similar qualities, are very very different actually.
Can you go to the other one?
Yeah, I mean, like the first project that we're seeing on screen now, and compared to this other project, actually, maybe if you stay on the mural for just a second, so we can see both of them.
One appears to be urban.
Yeah,
and the other one's domestic.
the one the thing I just want to bring up about the left one that's really interesting to me is like, okay, one, it's dealing with collage and almost, we've talked before about the idea of the ready-made or the conceptual art, of borrowing an object in a different context at a different scale. But then, like, the way that they've set the scene is super interesting because it's not even foregrounding the project, right? It's not even in the center of the model. It's giving you the high rise that's adjacent and the billboard as like a scalar reference, maybe. But all the objects retain their individual qualities. There's really no process to then bring them back into a whole, right? I mean, they're kind of.
This is 5th year work.
I believe so. Yeah.
Did they have a
thesis?
5-year program as well? Oh, graduate
work.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Wait, is it? I thought this was
Graduate Expo. I believe.
This is from their.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. Got it.
So, were you gonna say something?
I was just trying to figure out at what level.
I mean, my feedback on this would be a lot of times it just comes off as one-liners because of the limited information we get. So I'm sorry if this comes off one-line-ish. But I think the bottom images, the images of the kind of tower project, it's set up interestingly, as you say, because the tower is there and the billboard's there. So essentially the way I read it is like if you took the tower and you took the billboard and you combine them together, that's what you get. Like essentially you get a bunch of product placements that becomes the tower. And beyond that, I'm like, okay, what else? Like that's the unfortunate aspect of it. If it's about the model itself, it's beautiful. If it's about the representation, beautiful. The project, how deeper am I supposed to get given what I have? Like that's my issue with it. Am I supposed to give you context of a real building? Am I supposed to give you context on responding to cultural? I guess it's a response to the kind of the modernist tower and kind of the advertisement culture of capitalism that they're critiquing. I see that. I respect it. But like I hate the argument, is this an art project? Is it an architecture project? I think it's an architecture project. But like, is it just a critique or is it something beyond that? That's my view of it.
I don't know if you guys do this, but oftentimes I'll send what I'm working on to my friends that are not architects or associated with architecture in any way. And I just see, like, I don't say anything. I just leave it there. This is something
You're
I
a
like
freak,
to do.
dude. Who does that?
And
He's taking public temperature.
the stuff I get back is is oftentimes very funny. They're like, well, where's the door? Like, where's the front door? How do I get in? And those kinds of responses are, in some ways, what I'm looking for. It's like, what we want the work to be somewhat unexpected in terms of how you enter it, and how you look out of a window, dealing with, I guess, the elements of architecture and how they can surprise. But if I was to show this to that audience,
the bottom one or the top one?
Either.
Buy both. Yeah.
I have things running through my head of what they might say, and I think that kind of I guess way to project what the audience might think, whether you're a student or not, is super healthy. And it's very clear that first of all, the work, the models are immaculate. They're very well crafted. They're very precise, and they're interesting. And I don't know to what end is the hand of the critic in the model, and where the hand of the critic begins and the hand of the author begins, or ends and begins. You know what I'm saying? I assume this is graduate. Is this thesis?
Yes, it's supposed to be a thesis.
Yeah. Okay. Thesis expo. It's like, where is their thesis? Where is their position? Something I'm seeing a bit more and more, and what our colleague Claire Moriarty talks about this all the time. Like, how do we get students to think for themselves as an author, as an individual? Because that's what these institutions are for. Like, how do individuals become individuals? It's less so about, or at least the way it was intended, it's less so about, getting you a job when you graduate. I think those things will come, but that's how I would react to this. It's like, it's so clear that the hand of the critic is present.
The top versus the bottom project, though, I do think there are some important things to bring up. Like, in my mind, the bottom project is provocative in a way because it refuses to retranslate these objects that are conceptually referenced, and it even presents them in a tongue-in-cheek manner next to the high rise and the billboard. And I think, Waleed, you're completely right. It's like it's smashing the architecture and the billboard together to talk about this object. That's a great read on it. Yeah. The thing I like about the model on the top that I think is a little bit different is that there's clearly the same operation of understanding, like, hey, I'm trying to expand the vocabulary by bringing in other references. In this case, though, it seems to be a lot of architectural references and material references to maybe almost cartoonish versions of real material. Like, if you zoom in on that top right model for a moment, if you look at even the way that the white volume is framing what almost appears to be like bathroom tile, I think that's super fun. The clay tile on the roof, all these things. So this project, it's almost like the same maybe underpinning thesis, but maybe the language needs to stay a little bit closer to home, which is really related to what we've been talking about in the Attention podcast and all these formal themes that we're seeing. So I think that's kind of interesting. Now, either this author felt a little uncomfortable leaving the distance between the collaged item and the project so wide, or maybe this is just a formal language that they're particularly interested in. So I do think that they've brought some of their own.
Well, what is their position? Like, does the Instagram post say anything about that?
No, unfortunately, it doesn't.
And that's what I'm getting at.
I know.
That's what I'm getting at. And look, I'm just trying to speak honestly, because to get to this level is not easy. Neither on the part of the critic, either on the part of the critic or the student. It takes effort. So, I don't want to diminish that, but to what degree are we supposed to take this seriously?
Well, that's sorry to interrupt.
No. That's all
exactly what I'm like, these are absurdist projects. And in that way, they kind of sidestep critique. Because the moment you take it seriously, you're missing the plot.
Yep.
But hasn't it just evolved into a style? Like, this is the new postmodernist, or the new modern, whatever you want to call it. It's a style. You see it, you recognize it.
Yeah.
It's like so these are assemblies that are kind of, they're like weird assemblies. There's this idea of like sloppiness, like compacting. Both projects kind of adhere to that logic of compacting or assemblies that are disorganized. This is a very common aesthetic trope we see. It's kind of like saying, stop taking yourself so seriously, stop following the grid of modernism, stop following even the kind of the order of postmodernism. it's just a very recognizable style. And I added an image from Forma's work, which, if I show the students this project, I'm pretty sure if this is like a built project now that we're about to see from Forma, an architect firm, it has a lot of the same kind of aesthetic qualities, and not to diminish their work is amazing. I'm just saying, have we gotten to the point where it's like, it's so recognizable as the style? I don't know.
But wait,
because this used to be a one-off, but this is so common.
That's absurdist. I think that is critiquable and is taken seriously.
Well, because it's built. If I showed you the model of this project, do you think? Because to my point, Matt, like I understand what you're saying, but also if I just encountered this project, I don't have the architect's statement in front of me. Like I think in a way it is our responsibility to teach people how to read images in this way and unpack it, even if you don't have the context. Now I get it, when we're looking at student projects, it feels uncomfortable sometimes. But I'm saying, like, why is the Forma project different? Is it just because it's built that we're allowing it more territory?
Yeah, the other one's definitely buildable. That's the whole argument.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, no, it's not necessarily about buildability. It's like, what's the position that the student has taken? So let's put it in contrast or in juxtaposition to someone like Zaha, all right? I recognize that Zaha is a star architect and appeals to a very wealthy kind of clientele, but her thesis was very much about a kind of world building, taking Malevich, that lineage, developing into her own style, and developing an argument for that around parametricism, et cetera, single surface. And now we see a Zaha building. We're like, oh, that's Zaha. To what degree does a project like this set a student up for that?
Do you think, though? See, that gets so tricky, because I'm like, if Zaha was a student today and her thesis was put online, I'm not sure it's much different. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
we have enough information to know what context and what audience this is trying to appeal to and what the lineage is. Yeah. Versus Zaha totally made her own. She made her own. And I'm not saying that every student should develop a thesis to become a star architect. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that students need the opportunity to set themselves up as an individual at that moment versus having such a strong hand of the critic there.
Well, sorry to cut you off real quick. Zaha Hadid for a long time did Rem's project because she was a student. Yeah. And then she a lot of her projects dealt with congestion, even some of her most famous projects. Where do you think she gets that from? From like Rem's ideas of culture of the congestion.
Well, I think her project was also mostly about Malevich and abstraction.
Which Rem taught her, because that's what she learned at the AA. Like,
well, yeah, what you're saying is that how what role influence plays in this new kind of.
Yeah, it's just tough because it's hard. I hear what you're saying, Matt. I agree with your point. I think what I was trying to drill down on is just like, I'm not sure that it's possible to build a project in the way that it was then. I don't know. It's really hard for me to believe that that's still possible with our current setup.
But I didn't say project. I said trajectory.
What's the difference?
Well, trajectories could set you up on a certain career path. It could set you up to be your own kind of.
When I say project, I mean project, like not this model. I'm talking about their project.
The project. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we agree more than
I think we do. I think I'm trying to press on the idea that I'm not sure there's a good way to do a thesis right now in the way that Zaha did it, and I don't know. Maybe the place to do that thesis is not USC or not an institute. I don't know.
But why not? I don't understand.
Because we were talking about audience. Like the audience isn't necessarily so interested in digesting a thesis. That's all I'm trying to say.
But how much of an audience did Zaha have when she was making that?
I think part of retention is like our students, and maybe this is what you're getting at, is making work to appease the professor. Mm-hmm. And to break out of that runs great risk. Like,
there's that too.
Right?
But what do you mean?
Because with these projects, maybe what you're at to do the Zaha turn, you wouldn't do this project. You might not even be conversing in the absurdist, like, conversation from 10 years ago at SciArc or whatever. You would do your own thing. But to do that, then what are you speaking to? And that's where the discourse is dissolved.
And we're going to have to pick this up because that's a good conversation. Yeah. I mean, then the day Zaha Hadid's project and her thesis probably wasn't anything significant, to be honest. It was probably later that the work actually became really, really significant. So,
and she was proving, like, in spite of her professor, like, she's trying to do something that overcomes her instructors, whereas I think these students today are doing to like prove some level of acceptance.
Right, and
from
then you
their
get punished if you don't, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. If that's making sense.
All right, that's it, y'all. We got Zen vibes coming through.
Hey, we took a chip at the Attention Podcast. I'm sure that those themes will keep coming up, and we'll keep talking about it.
We're gonna hop on the podcast to fight you guys.
No, I complimented them.
We
They're
like,
great.
no,
we like it.
We've been
Podcast duel.
we've been fanning out over it.
Anything I
Actually,
say sounds negative, so this is that. So I have a negative, bitch stance for whatever the fuck they call it. What is it, bitch face? Standing
Resting bitch.
Resting bitch.
face. Yeah,
Standing
I've-
bitch.
you have SPK energy, is what you've described.
The
it with?
SPK's a thing.
What is
Fuck out of
that?
my face. with
Sour
that
Patch
shit.
Kid
Oh.
energy. Like he's sour and then he's sweet, and you never know what's
All
coming.
right. All right, everybody. See ya.